You're on Air with Jamie, the place where female founders, industry leaders, innovators, and disruptors all come to level the fuck up. Today's show is brought to you by Meant for Millions, 28 days to melt your money blocks away. Holy moly, this episode is absolutely insane. If you are someone who is really wanting to grow a personal brand and stand out online, Allysa, my guest, is your go-to. She is a social media strategist, but when I say that she delivers content and she delivers strategy in a way that I have never come across on social media before, you have to believe me. Go follow her, listen to this episode. Honestly, buckle up because we dive so deep. I love it. All right, let's do it. Okay, Allysa, tell us what is hot and what is not in the industry this week.
Oh, this is gonna sound so cheesy, but it's authenticity in storytelling. And I know everyone says that, but it really is. It really is. People are just craving realness. People are craving a more humanized approach to content, to socials. I mean, from big businesses to small creators, like we really want to have a closer relationship with the people that we are watching online. And I know it sounds so cheesy and we've heard it 10 million times, but it is true.
And what is not hot for you?
Oh, so many things. Algorithm chasing, enough with the hacks of that. Which I understand the intention there and I think, data is important. I think looking at data is important and strategy and numbers and all of that. But I think the moment that you are just constantly chasing the views, you lose the thing that people are actually looking for, which is your authenticity. And then you kind of go down this rabbit hole of like, well, what's working for someone else? Okay, let me do that because they got a lot of views and then I have to do it too. When really, if you just honed in and refined your own content, the algorithms will follow. They'll pick that up.
Allysa, welcome to the On Air with Jamie podcast. Honestly, I have been snoozing on inviting you onto this show for way too long. I've been fangirling and being like, I need this girl on my show. I love everything you do. I love the things that you talk about, but it's because of the way that you talk about it. I followed so many different social media strategists over the years of being online, and I just feel like nobody really does it the way that you do it. It's like delivering this whole new level of brand and content strategy. And I'm so excited to just dive right into it today. I've been stalking you. And what I want to actually start with is it's a TikTok that you actually created a couple of
Uh-huh.
weeks ago, I think,
Uh-huh.
around strategic authenticity.
Right.
Because everyone talks about you need to be authentic online. You need to be authentic. Just be yourself. And that's when people are going to be drawn to you. But I have not come across this idea of being strategically authentic. So, can we start there and dive right into that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. This comes up so much. And I think it comes from a really good place, right? People are craving authenticity. They want to show up as themselves. They don't want to put on, this kind of performance for their socials. And I think the place that it starts with is really, really great. However, your brand is not your personal diary. I always like to say your brand is your vibe. You are not your brand. And it's actually better that those two things live as separate entities because first we want to play it for the long game, right? Mental health is really important. So we don't want to you don't have to like overshare to be really, successful online. So when I say strategic authenticity, it's about figuring out those authentic parts of you, those authentic experiences, the authentic parts of you that you want to show up online, and then letting your strategy magnify that, right? Like every single person is a multifaceted, multi-dynamic human being. Like we all are multiple different versions of themselves and can show up as multiple different versions of themselves online. However, online we just don't have the time for all of those nuances all the time. So if you want to think about your brand, it's those authentic parts of you that are at the forefront. And then later on, or in maybe something that is meant for that, let's say Instagram stories, you can show up in those different ways. But that's what I mean by show up strategically. Show up in a way that's strategically authentic is just taking those parts of you that you do want to show up online and then making that your brand, as opposed to let me just share my entire life online and I just hope it sticks.
Yeah, I love this because, and this is something I've been through myself as well, is I think there's this notion of people feeling like you're inauthentic if you're not showing all the different parts of you. And what I specifically mean by that is like if you're going through a really tough time in your personal life, then it would be considered inauthentic to show up online as this bubbly, happy version of you. But I actually believe that that's the duality of life and of being a human. And for like a really emotionally intelligent person, you can hold both parts of you. So is that also what you're talking about when you say like strategically authentic or strategic authenticity?
Totally. Yes, yes, yes. And of course, if you are comfortable with showing that, I think vulnerability is really powerful. But if you're not, then don't. We have seen what happens to, let's say, Hollywood stars. We've seen what happens when those boundaries are 100% broken. And I think this new wave of creators is, not only going to be closer to their audience than maybe bigger stars that we saw in the past, but I think they are going to have those boundaries because we've learned before what happens when we don't have those boundaries.
Yeah. And I feel like there is a difference between like being vulnerable and, like you said, using your social media platform as an online diary. Unless obviously
Mm.
you are a lifestyle creator and that is your whole brand. For most of like my audience and the people that will be listening to this show, we're all personal brands. We're all building businesses. And I do find like myself when I've shown up and I've shared something that is really vulnerable, those posts always really hit and form a
Mhm.
deeper connection. But I also don't feel like I have to share like every little thing that goes on in my life in order to be vulnerable with my audience.
Yes, totally, totally. And also that it's okay to like have parts of your life that are just for you and your family, between you and God, between you and you know what I mean? You can hold that. The other part of that, and this is more strategy wise, is if you are to show up as every single version of yourself, and that's not at the core of your brand, it becomes super confusing for your audience. And we've all heard if you confuse, you lose, right? So if you are extremely confusing, then you're not really thinking about your community members, you're just confusing them.
That's so powerful. I want to take a little dive in a different direction now and talk about the thing that you have literally been taking social media by storm at the moment on the signature style
Yeah.
series.
Yes,
Because you know
yes.
what? I've started seeing now, like I saw you, and I'm not saying that you started the trend, but I'm pretty sure that you did. But I saw you talking about this first, and now I've seen a few other, like in particular on TikTok, like TikTok strategists talking about the same thing. I want to talk about what this is because I know that when I first came across it, I actually thought that it was different to what it is. And I
Mm,
thought that
mhm.
signature style series meant that it had to be like a theme. Like people do series where it's like I did one last year that was changing my life and quantum leaping.
Mm, mhm.
And so I thought that signature style series meant that it was like that one topic, that one theme that you did a series on, and that's all the all the content that you created. But I've obviously since had an intensive with you, which was amazing, by
Yeah.
the way, everyone. And now I know what it really means. So can we talk about that a little bit and how people can go about finding their signature style series, knowing that you have some amazing content on this already on your TikTok. So everyone needs to go and follow Allysa over there.
Yes. So the idea of having a signature style series has been around forever. I mean, if I think about like OG TikTokers, like when TikTok first started coming out, maybe a little bit after when people started doing things other than dance, they found one thing that really, really worked, and then they continued to build upon that, and then people would then be able to share their story because it was so concise. It was like, well, have you heard, even if they didn't know their name, have you heard of the guy that gives celebrities coffee? Have you heard of the girl that sits on our couch and talks about pop culture, which would be Girl Boss Town? I think she's a really good example. But basically, your signature style series is something that you can repeat over and over and over again. Original content that you can repeat over and over and over again. That's different from maybe like a 7-second trending sound or a little clip with some text overlay. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is really nice to have a piece of content that you can repeat and be recognized for. Because I think in social media, when everything is so noisy, to be able to be recognized for one piece of content, or at least one series, one type of content, is really, really powerful because then your story is very easy to share.
Yeah. And so when you talk about this signature style, it's not just in the topic, although the topic obviously is important and needs to be relevant, but it's also in the way that you're creating the video.
Yes. Yes. So what I've seen, and her name is escaping me, but she's a creator on TikTok, and she is one of my favorite creators because she recreates brands' logos, and she has this very silly brand persona where she is this professional, but obviously the logos are just like very silly, and brands kind of jump on it. Is like a signature style series, right? Because you can say, do you know the girl that redoes brands logos, right? And the format is very the same, very very similar every single time. So she'll open up with this logo needs to be redone, I'm a professional, and then she goes in and then she does like an analysis, right?
I've
So
just
it's
found
very.
her. Like
Oh
she's
really?
literally just popped up on my For You page, which is
Oh my
so
gosh,
funny. I know
I love her.
exactly who you're talking about. And I
Yes.
love how she does it. So she then takes you through the process of how she would create the logo
Hmm.
as a graphic designer. And it's
Hmm.
the most simple video ever. Like
Yeah.
it's literally a screen like recording
Yes.
of her computer, right? And then the
Yes.
little square of her at the top.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
that's so funny.
So that thing is really recognizable, and it's a multitude of things. It's
Yeah.
her tone, it's the way that she is expressing herself, it's what she's wearing, it's like the specific topic. So it's kind of a culmination of a lot of things. It's kind of like a mini I like to say like TV segment or like a mini reality show, very recognizable, right? But then as you grow, you can take that and turn it into other things. So, for example, she did a video and it was how to make orange juice, and it was the same tone, same vibe, very similar structure. It has nothing to do with logos, right? But because she created that signature style series and that was so specific to her, she can then transfer that over to other things, which I think is really, really cool.
I guess the question then is when you then find your signature style series and
Mhm.
you can replicate it across the board
Yes.
to other things that are different to what you are known for talking about. How do you then make that relevant to you and your personal brand?
Do you mean when you create your signature style series, what does it have to do with your personal brand?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
how can we then so the example that you just gave was well she's known for recreating these logos and then she used the same type of video and made orange juice. So
Mm,
as like a strategist from your side because I know people get really excited and we want to show all different sides of ourselves on social media and we want
right.
to show these things and trial different stuff and I know I went through this whole at the start no it was actually at Easter I'd seen this chick on TikTok who makes Rocky Road, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do
Oh,
that and I'm going to film it. And I never ended up putting it out because I was like, what is the value that anyone's going to get from this aside from seeing like maybe who I am as a person behind the scenes? So, where can we draw the line between what's like relevant to building our personal brand and our business and
mhm.
things that, are just fun to put out? And is there a place for stuff that is just fun to share? It's a
Yes.
really loaded question. Sorry.
Yes, I know. It's there's a lot of layers to
Yeah.
this. So I'm gonna first start with creating your lifestyle pillar and the
Yeah.
different ways that your lifestyle pillar can show up in your content so that there's a sense of like cohesion, right? So
Beautiful.
essentially your lifestyle pillar is 3 to 5 elements of your life that have nothing to do with your niche, nothing to do with your business, nothing to do with your industry. It's just authentic parts of you that you want to show. Like, for example, your favorite coffee or your favorite drink, right?
Mhm.
Your favorite way that you take your coffee or your morning routine essentials, things like that. So usually I would say that those elements can show up in like a blunt way and a subtle way. So on Instagram stories, I would be way more blunt here, way more consistently because the people that are watching your Instagram stories are your hottest leads and your most engaged community
Mhm.
members. And then you can subtly integrate that in your content. So for example, if someone's my favorite drink is boba. I'm obsessed with it. I can have boba every day. I should not do that, and I don't, but if I could, I would. I can have that maybe in, like, and I have it in my brand shoot. It has nothing to do
Mm.
with social strategy, right? But I genuinely really, really like boba, and, that's just something that I wanted to include in my brand shoot, but it's something really, really subtle. So those are different ways that those small little things can come up, so there's a sense of, like, cohesiveness. Also, I think we need to get out of this idea that every single, and I find this specifically with TikTok, that every single video needs to be like a home run when it really doesn't. I will do a little transition video every now and then, And the purpose of that isn't to get views at all. It's for one, I want to do it because it's my page and I think it's really fun. And two, my like community members, the people that really genuinely engage in my content to see something else from me that's a little bit more relatable or a little bit more fun. Like that's fun for us in that community setting. So I think when it comes to balancing out your lifestyle content, your personal brand content, the content that is separate from your niche or your business or your industry, like have different goals for each piece of content so that it's not every time that you need to go viral. It's not every single time that something needs to hit just like this, because then what ends up happening, and we've seen this from a lot of large creators, is that they'll get stuck in this one type of content, and then eventually they do want to pivot and they do want to change and they do want to talk about other things, but their audience just isn't there with
Yeah, they
them. So
basically
then they're
get
like,
cancelled. Yeah.
yeah, so then they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, well, no one wants this from me, so now what am I gonna do?" When you could just grow maybe a little bit slower, but at least you did that from the very beginning, so that's not a shock later on.
Yes, I love that. And I guess like a lot of the intention behind that then too is showing who you are as a person. And, that then feeds into your personal brand, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Selfish vlogs is something else that I see
Yeah.
you always talk about. And I feel like this kind of feeds like all into that, where it's like about, how much of yourself you share, but make it valuable to the person. So, can we talk about
Yeah.
selfish vlogs and where that came from? Because
Yes.
I've actually never heard of that before. And I know like I follow so many people more so on YouTube just because they
Mhm.
share their life. And so when I came across, yeah, your videos around like what's the audience getting from it, I was like, I've never actually thought of that.
Yes. Yeah, and this is really different if you think about a vlog on Reels or Instagram versus YouTube. Like, the
Yes.
consumer behavior on YouTube is a little bit different. We want to maybe put on the YouTube, channel and, like, do our laundry or go about our
That's
day. So it's a
exactly what
little
I
bit
do.
different. Me too, exactly. It's like a nice, like, background noise when you're
Yeah.
doing your
Yep.
makeup, right? Whereas Instagram and TikTok, we're not really doing that. We kinda are just, like, looking at our phones. So the thing that I started noticing when everyone was dipping into more lifestyle content, which again, I love to see it, but then they would get upset that their lifestyle vlogs didn't perform as well as their other pieces of content, and they had the intention or expectancy that it was going to perform well and reach because other people were doing
Mhm.
it. And when you would look at the vlog and it would be a daily itinerary with visuals and like no story at all. So then you're not answering the question, what's in it for
Mhm.
them? And that's really what I mean by a selfish vlog. It's really all about you, it's not about me. And the issue there is that when we're scrolling, we're already thinking, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
Is this going to be funny? Am I going to learn something? What is it? Are you gonna ooh, do I need to buy something? And if it's not answering those questions, then it's not a piece of content that you should have an expectancy for it to grow, right? Which is totally okay. So that's what I mean by selfish vlogs. And it's like twofold. Like I will post a selfish vlog, but I don't come in with the expectancy that it's going to perform as well as, let's say, my educational content does, because that's not the purpose of that. But if you do want to do more vlogs and have that be a bulk of your content, they can't always be selfish because now you're competing with your potential community member.
Yes. Okay, that makes so much more sense. So you can post the vlogs and like the behind the scenes stuff with the intention of, again, showing who you are as a person, but you shouldn't hold
Mhm.
expectancy on those videos to be the ones that go viral
Totally.
and bring people into your community.
Totally. Yeah. And if you want to, make unselfish vlogs, it can be very simple. It can literally be maybe you are talking about something vulnerable and relatable, or you're sharing a really good story. Storytelling is also something that is like soup. I mean, it's always been in, but it's kind of resurfacing and everyone wants to dip into storytelling. Like, what's a really good story? Maybe instead of here is what I did today, day in the life as a content creator, it's like, today was a really boring day, but I'm trying my best to be productive. And then kind of walk us through like the little habits or little things that you're doing to be productive. Or I have not been outside the house in a few days, which is very true for me sometimes. So today I'm going to try a new coffee shop in Southern California and do a review or something along those lines, where you're answering the question, what's in it for them? You can still show your personality, but it's a balance.
That's such an interesting way to do storytelling content, because when you say storytelling to me, immediately my mind goes to, okay, so what's a story I can tell about like a past client that's going to be relevant to my services? And my brain doesn't even go to, okay, well, how can I just like share my life in a story or share something relevant to my audience in a story? And I feel like I'm not alone in that. Do you come across people all the time who are like, I don't even know where to start with stories?
Yes, and it's usually business owners and
Yeah.
not creators. It's and business owners, we have it a little bit it's a little bit different than, a full-time creator or full-time influencer. So I think the client story times are great, especially for authority building. I think those are great over, the 3 tips too, which we see a lot in the
Yeah.
educator space. But if you wanna tell a story about yourself, totally fine. What's a juicy little lesson that we can take out of that? And then then it kind of ties to your services. That's kind of a way that you can do that there. Or maybe it's something really silly and funny and entertaining. Like I think business owners sometimes put on the CEO hat and they don't take it off. And I'm like, well, what about all this funny stuff that happened? You don't wanna show that? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like it's funny, it's humanizing, it's unexpected for you to do something like that. So those are a few different ways that business owners can kind of tap into this. If the majority of storytelling content you're consuming is from full-time content creators and not business owners, like from the beginning of time, we would use stories to share lessons. So I think business owners, and usually business owners, especially in the service provider safe space, are leaders. You can still influence and lead and provide that sense of value without being so like, here 3 tips to this is what you have to follow. Here's my signature framework, my blueprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's such an interesting space we're in at the moment, because I feel like I don't want to be the person that's like, oh, it's an oversaturated industry. That's not my vibe at all. But as we see more and more like business owners entering the social media space and people wanting to build personal brands to support their businesses, there is still like, well, I think this notion of people wanting to really show up as like influential entrepreneurs and be more like influencers, but also, hey, I'm not selling like a protein powder, or I don't have a discount code for a skin company, but here's my products and services. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's really cool. Like it's a really cool transformation. But in that, it's everyone still wanting to show up and be seen as this leader and this authority.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, and it's totally possible. I think maybe it's just more about dipping a little bit more into your creative and putting that creative hat on over always strategy, always selling.
And I see you talk about this as well, where you're like, social media is an art, not a
Yes.
science.
Yes.
Yes. Can you talk
Yes.
about that more?
Yes. So before I even started this business, I wanted to be an actress. So that's usually performing arts and dancing and acting. That's really where I get like the majority of my inspiration from when it comes to social strategy. But that's the thing. It's like there is no 100% mathematical formula to content, and it's really frustrating, especially for business owners, because they're so tactful and analytic, and I think that's really really great. But there's another side to it where it's like, before we can even get to your website taps, we need to work on your creation skills and how you express on camera. And even just and as a social media manager, getting my clients used to, well, I need you to film this b-roll, remember to film it, right? Or when you film it, please don't have it be super super exposed. There's an art there. And even to social media, like, as much as there are algorithm experts, which I do not proclaim to be one, no one is like 100% going to know what the algorithm wants. Like, especially TikTok, we're never ever going to know. And there's a video that could pop off that I'm like, oh, I didn't really put a lot of thought to this one. There's a video I could try so hard on, and I'm like, why? What? This is my best video yet. Like, why are people not watching it or listening to it, right? So there's like an art aspect to it. And I think, you know, if you kind of think about it that way, kind of like how an artist or a creative would think about it, it's okay to take your time a little bit, be a little bit more intentional, and not just look at the numbers. Because once you work on like the other stuff first, like the content creation skills first, the numbers usually follow.
Mm, yeah, I love that. And something I know that you are very good at is getting those numbers for your clients. Like you've been sharing that all over your social media lately, and people getting millions and millions of views
Yeah.
after working one on one with you. But what I love about you is that you will openly be like, yeah, cool. Like, I'm not getting these results for myself because I'm not following a growth strategy, but I'm here sharing that with you. So tell us
Mhm.
the difference then between the type of strategy that you follow as like the manager
Mhm.
and the growth strategy that you're helping your clients like literally get millions of views. Like, it's insane. What did you have someone grow from 200 followers to like 80,000 in a month or something?
Yes, yes, and, yeah, her name is Tiffany. We worked together, so I did an audit on her account when she
Yep.
had 200 followers, and then after the audit, we did a one-on-one call. After the one-on-one call, it was a month happened after she was at 60K, then we hopped on a second call, and she was growing on the second call to 70 to 80, and then
Wow.
after 6 weeks, she hit 100, and it
Holy
was
moly.
crazy. It was crazy. So, the things that we did for her really, really well, and the things that she not even me, that she did really well because I could give someone and I have like a blueprint to their content and like these are the ideas. This is what's going to happen. And sometimes it's just not in the cards for them at the time
Yeah.
to be putting in that type of time and energy. And that's totally understandable, right? But she was in a space where like she never stopped. Even before we worked with each other, she was always creating and she had that motivation and she had that fire under her. So that was one thing. She posts like a very big difference between her and I post on Tik I do post on TikTok. I try to post 5 times a week. But you sometimes that one post may not be a growth type post, like an educational post. On Instagram, it's been like 2 to 3. So
Yeah.
I'm posting less because I'm working with clients.
Yeah.
So that's like really the main difference as far as like cadence goes.
Yeah.
And also my energy is now pouring more into my clients and making sure that they have the content ideas and all of that over my own socials. So that would be the biggest thing there. I think another thing that I don't really do a lot is I try my best not to do too many um educational I do educational videos, but they're just not always super fast action, which I think it's hard because I know that my audience wants that, and I know that it would be helpful for them, but sometimes I literally can't give you a 1, 2, 3.
Mm.
Sometimes I can just give you as much guidance as possible, and then you have to take it one-on-one. Sure, I could talk about, like, an SEO tip or maybe a few algorithm updates, which I know, well, guesstimating would perform really well because 'cause they're really tangible,
Yeah.
but that's just not what I am known for, that's not what my clients come to me for, and I wouldn't wanna create content with, like, a sense of expectancy for if someone did wanna work with me of like, "Oh, well, she's gonna know what the algorithms are, right?" Or she's gonna know, like, the perfect SEO words. Of course, we do SEO research, but Instagram doesn't even give us analytics to SEO
I
words.
know.
So
Yeah.
so, yeah, and then, also just, like, as a creative, I like to talk about content, and because content is an art, it's not as, like, tangible and tactful, so that's also another reason why, quote, unquote, "growth" on socials for me is a little bit slower than my clients. My those Tiffany specifically, she's not even in the same, quote, unquote, "niche" as I am, so
No.
we're very different there.
Yes.
But yeah, that was I kinda went off on a little tangent,
No,
but
no, I love that because something that I think is really important there is that you're like really in integrity with the things that you value and the things that you believe and that you teach your clients, but also the things that you just want to talk about. Because
Mhm.
I know so many people that would be like, oh, well, I know that talking about like SEO and growth hacks and blah, blah, blah is going to get me views and followers and all the rest of it. So I'm just going to do that because give the people what they want. Right. And I
Yeah.
love that you don't do that because I just think that there's everyone wants to spruik like make your own rules for your own business and social media and everything, but there's still a lot of people who are playing into like literally just this is what people want and this is what will get views, so I'll just do that even if I don't really love it.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah. Like I'll do just like if an idea comes to me and maybe it's not super specific on what's performing really well for my content, I'll still post it because I still think it's valuable. So that's what I mean by not following, a growth strategy on my end. I
Yeah.
mean I do post with the intention to like reach as many people as possible. I just I just know that in the back of my mind I'm like, if I went a different direction, I'd probably grow way more. Um, but also, all honesty, full transparency, I don't even know if I'm even 100% ready to have 100,000 followers tomorrow. I don't know. I am there with my clients when they go super viral. And here's the thing about going viral. There's going to be bad comments and there is every time. And I had one, two, three. I've had three of my clients go viral in 1 week and they all took a little mental health hit, and we kinda
Yes.
had to go through that together. So, for me, what I can show up for my clients in that way, but I don't 100% know if I'm actually ready for that myself. So, it's kind of been nice growing slowly and sustainably.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people don't think about and are not prepared for is
Mhm,
what actually happens when you do have that video pop off.
mhm.
And also, like, is going viral really necessarily the growth strategy that for a business is best for you? Probably not. But I feel like you're a true testament to like, you can't go and look at someone's following and decide whether they can help you in your business or not. Because I know even for myself, sometimes I've probably judged people and been like, oh, well, she can't do that for her. So how can she do it for other people? But you're a true testament to you can't look at like those, analytics and be like, oh, well, she's not doing it for herself. So how can she do it for me? Because you are doing it for other people. And I think that that's so powerful. And there's so many people who are out there spruiking like their high income months and what they're doing for themselves, but they're not able to show the same results for their clients. So I know what speaks more to me. Now, I appreciate you so much. Tell us what is going on in your world. I know that since sharing those analytics and some of the results that you have gotten for clients, you've blown up. You're booked
Yes.
out.
Yes, yes, and I would much rather be booked out and have the DMs of, people being, "I'm so inspired," I'm starting my own signature style series, like, or people sharing me, like, their personal stories, and also, of course, yeah, getting booked out. I didn't start this business to not make money over 100,000 followers, overnight, so
Mm.
I'm so incredibly grateful, but it's been a little crazy on my end a little bit. I am booked out for one-on-one intensives, specifically July and August. So people are pre-booking in September, which is really cool. I actually one of my clients were actually twinning because she's also booked out July and August, because we had a video of hers that blew up and she's actually booked out too. So that's
Love.
also really special. But
Yeah.
yeah, what I'm trying to work on is other ways, that people can work with me, like a course or something along those lines. I'm still trying to figure out, what's gonna be the most helpful, but
Yeah.
now I think this is a sign for me to try to find other ways because there's only so much one-on-one time, I can give, but I'm
Mhm.
so honored that enough creators and people trust me to be a part of their journey because social media space is scary. So it's an honor.
Honestly, I had a one-on-one session with you last week. And
Mhm.
when you say on that page, like your booking page, that you get a lot done in an hour, holy fuck, you get a lot done in an hour.
I know,
Like
we're, like,
we
sweating
went so
so
deep.
yeah. Well,
Like
also
I'm
that's
still
you.
processing it, ready to implement all of the stuff that we talked about.
But that's also you because you like to get down to the you're like, we're skipping all this stuff."
Yeah.
Like, you
I'm
also
like,
do
take
get
me
down.
deep.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for this conversation, Alyssa. I will make sure that all of your details are linked in the show notes below so everyone listening can go and find you on social media, book in advance for a one-on-one intensive,
Yes.
or just to keep an eye out for the course or whatever is to come next in your world.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun.